For years, two factions. One brutal war that changed science forever. This is the story of the Gombe Chimpanzee War, where military-like tactics and targeted assassinations proved that our closest relatives are capable of organized, long-term warfare. Welcome back to WildLeadTube, where we bring you animal intelligence verified. Today we are diving into a conflict so strategic it forced researchers to admit that humans aren't the only ones capable of conducting a calculated campaign of violence. You might think of primates as simple creatures driven by instinct, but the events between 1974 and 1978 prove they are capable of complex planning. And I have the receipts to prove it, showing how they used military-grade strategy. This is not a theory about animal aggression. This is documented history, backed by decades of rigorous primatology. By the end of this video, you will understand the hidden mechanism behind primate conflict and why it matters to you. This isn't speculation. This is science. Many people believe that war is a uniquely human invention, but the data from Tanzania tells a much darker story. Let me show you the evidence that changed our understanding of nature forever. Here is the first piece of evidence that will challenge your perspective on the natural world. Scientists once believed chimps were peaceful creatures, but the Gombe conflict shattered that myth. The truth is far more calculated and chilling. Let me show you exactly how this community of primates fractured into two warring states. You need to understand that this wasn't just a series of random scuffles, but a systematic campaign of terror that lasted for 4 years. Sound familiar? It should. The way these animals organized themselves mirrors the earliest human conflicts. Now, let me show you the specific events that triggered the first recorded civil war in the history of non-human primates. What makes this dangerous today is how it reveals our own evolutionary baggage. While you're watching this, ask yourself if we have truly moved past these primitive instincts. The stakes for understanding our biological heritage have never been higher. The data reveals that the capacity for strategic violence is millions of years old. This validates your suspicion that there is a deeper, more ancient reason for the conflicts we see in the human world around us right now. There is something strange about the way the war started. We will return to the specific catalyst in a moment, but first, you need to see the environment where this unprecedented violence took place. Just hold that thought. The Gombe Stream National Park was the stage for this 4-year nightmare. Imagine a peaceful community suddenly ripped apart by internal politics and territorial ambition. This is where the story of the Kasakela and Kahama factions begins. But here's where it gets interesting. The split wasn't just about space. It was about power and influence. Stay with me, because the next part reveals the first tactical move in a game that would end in total annihilation. In 1974, the Gombe Stream National Park became a documented battlefield. Jane Goodall observed a unified community split into two rival factions, the Kasakela and the Kahama. This division triggered a cycle of violence that defied all previous knowledge. I've linked the source in the description, specifically the 1974 Goodall study published in the journal Nature. This evidence payoff shows that the split was a deliberate social choice made by the primates, not a random environmental accident. The split wasn't accidental. 8 males and 3 females moved south, forming the Kahama group, while the remaining members stayed in the north. This division was the spark that ignited a 4-year cycle of violence and strategic crime. Researchers watched in horror as former friends became lethal enemies. The northern group began conducting stealthy raids into southern territory. Same warning signs, same escalation, same tragic result. This was the beginning of a calculated war of attrition. Same warning, same dismissal, same collapse. The Kasekala group began to view their former brothers as intruders. This is the part they hide in the cute nature documentaries. But the reality of primate politics is far more brutal. Keep this in mind. The chimps didn't just fight when they bumped into each other. They actively sought each other out. We will return to why this specific behavior matters in a moment. But first, look at the tactics. The Kasakala males didn't just stumble into fights. They organized formal border patrols. They moved in single file, silent and alert, sniffing the air for rivals. This level of coordination was previously thought to be a uniquely human trait. When they found a lone Kahama chimp, they didn't just scare him off, they executed him with terrifying precision. This discovery reward shows that primates understand the concept of numerical advantage and use it to eliminate their competition. Consider the case of Gotti, the first victim of the war. He was surrounded by 5 northern males who pinned him down and beat him until he could no longer move. This wasn't a fight, it was an execution. Now here's where most people get this wrong. This wasn't a random outburst of rage. It was a strategic removal of a rival male to weaken the opposing faction. The Kasekala chimps were playing a long-term game of dominance. The raids continued for years, each one more calculated than the last. The northern males would wait until they had a clear advantage before striking. They knew that by eliminating the southern males, they could eventually reclaim the territory. Here's what nobody else will tell you. The chimps used psychological warfare. They would scream and display after a eliminate, signaling their dominance to the remaining Kahama members. This was a deliberate attempt to demoralize their enemies through violence. The pattern was always there, but we were too blind to see it. 3 victims, 3 raids, 3 executions. Each time, the Kasekala group grew bolder, realizing that their strategy of targeted assassinations was working perfectly to clear the land. The dominant males led these raids, while the rest of the community followed their lead. They protected their own interests by eliminating any threat to their resources. Meanwhile, the lower-ranking members were forced to endure the constant threat of war. For the alpha males, the war was a path to more power and better territory. For the ordinary chimps, it was a period of constant fear and loss. Today, modern geopolitics shows a similar pattern of leadership-driven conflict. The Kasekala group didn't just want to win a fight. They wanted to erase the Kahama group from the map. This is the mechanism of total war applied in the deep forest. It challenges everything we believe about animal morality. The mechanism of this war was simple: territorial expansion through systematic extermination. The Kasekala group wasn't just defending their home, they were actively seeking to wipe out their rivals. This is the system working exactly as designed. Here is how it actually works. Strip away the complexity of the forest, and you see a military campaign designed to conquer. The chimps weren't acting on impulse. They were following a strategic blueprint for total victory. This is not a bug in nature. This is a feature of social intelligence. The same brains that allow for cooperation also allow for the coordination of lethal violence. It is a dark mirror of our own cognitive abilities. The American Journal of Primatology later analyzed these specific events, confirming that the chimps used tactical retreats when they were outnumbered. I've linked the source in the description. The revelation was clear. These animals possessed maps. They knew exactly where their enemies lived, and they waited for the perfect moment to strike. This wasn't just aggression, it was intelligence applied to crime. You'll find the link below to the full research paper on this. One group gained vast territory and resources, while the other was completely erased from existence. This is not a simple animal rivalry. This is the blueprint for organized human violence. They knew, they watched, they conquered. By 1978, the Kahama group was gone. Every single male had been eliminated, and the females were either captured or fled. The Kasakela group had achieved their goal of total territorial control through a 4-year campaign of terror. Now you understand why the Gombe War was so significant. It proved that the capacity for war is not a cultural invention, but a biological one that completes the first piece of the puzzle regarding primate intelligence. What makes this dangerous today is how it mirrors human tribalism. Right now, the same evolutionary mechanisms that drove the Gombe War are active in our own societies. The next part is the most important for your understanding. Right now, as we speak, researchers are finding that the capacity for us versus them thinking is millions of years old. This isn't just history, it's a warning about our own nature. The pattern is repeating in the modern world. Let me show you the modern parallel. Primatologists are currently using Gombe data to study the roots of human warfare. Every year this research continues. We learn more about the dark side of our own biological heritage. While you're not paying attention, these ancient patterns are shaping the world around you. The cost of not knowing this is a failure to understand our own impulses. Knowledge is the only protection against our primitive past. Modern leaders often use the same psychological triggers to mobilize groups as the alpha chimps did in Gombe. They create an enemy, organize a faction, and promise territory. It is the same playbook used for millions of years. Your world, your instincts, your future, everything is connected to these ancient forest battles. If you ignore the science of animal intelligence, you ignore the science of yourself. This is the reality of our shared evolutionary history. So what should you take from this? First, understand that animal intelligence is not a myth. It's a strategic reality. Second, realize that organized conflict is a deeply rooted biological trait that we must actively manage. Third, build awareness of how these primitive instincts still influence modern human decisions. Awareness is the first step toward rising above our biological programming. Knowledge of the past is the only way to secure a peaceful future. All sources, including the Jane Goodall Institute's extensive archives, are linked in the description for your review. This modern proof shows that the patterns of the past are still very much alive in our DNA today. Before I give you the final thought, consider that we are more like them than we care to admit. The Gombe War was a mirror held up to humanity. What we saw in that mirror was both terrifying and enlightening. If this revelation opened your eyes, subscribe, because our next video explores the hidden language of dolphins and their own strategic behaviors. How do they coordinate hunts across miles of ocean? Subscribe to see the verified science. Remember the 4-year war I mentioned at the start. It proved that the line between us and them is thinner than a forest canopy. This isn't about monkeys in the woods. It's about the origins of our soul. Animal intelligence verified. The truth is often more complex and darker than we imagine. Until next time, Keep looking for the science behind the wild. Remember, they are smarter than you think, period. The Gombe War ended decades ago, but its lessons are just beginning to be understood. We are not the only ones who plan. We are not the only ones who war. We are simply the ones with the tools. Think about that the next time you look at a primate behind glass. They aren't just animals. They are strategic thinkers with a history of their own. The forest hides many secrets, and war is one. The Kasakela victory was absolute, but it came at a cost to the entire community. Violence leaves a mark on the land and the lineage. This is the mathematical inevitability of conflict in any social species. The numbers don't lie. 4 years of war, 0 survivors from the southern faction. That is the efficiency of primate strategy when it is applied to a specific goal. It is a chilling reminder of our origins. I've linked the full breakdown of the Gombe timeline in the description. You can see the day-by-day escalation for yourself. It is a masterclass in tactical aggression and social collapse that every student of history should study. Now you see the full picture of the Gombe War. It wasn't a riot, it was a revolution. It wasn't a fight, it was a campaign. It was the moment science had to admit the truth about chimps. They are our brothers in both peace and war. To deny their intelligence is to deny our own history. The Gombe War is the proof that we have been looking for, even if we didn't like the answer. Stay with me for the next video as we continue to verify animal intelligence across the globe. From the depths of the ocean to the heart of the jungle, the science is clear. They are watching us, and they are learning. Just as the Kasakela chimps learned to hunt their own kind, other species are showing us new depths of cognition every day. This is the mission of WildLeadTube, to bring you the truth. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Gombe conflict. Your support allows us to keep digging into the research that matters. Subscribe, stay curious, and always question what you think you know about nature. Remember, the pattern is always there if you know where to look. The Gombe War was just the beginning of our understanding. There is so much more to reveal about the minds of the animals we share. In the end, the Kasakela group expanded their territory, but the forest was never the same. The ghosts of the Kahama group still haunt the trees of Gombe. This is the legacy of the first primate war. We will return to these themes in future episodes, exploring how other primates handle conflict and cooperation. The story of intelligence is the story of survival. And survival is never simple, even for a chimpanzee. The tactical retreats, the silent patrols, the targeted killsies are the building blocks of what we call civilization. Or, perhaps, they are the cracks in it. Either way, the science of Gombe remains undeniable and rarefied. As we speak, new generations of chimps are navigating these same social waters. The war may be over, but the intelligence that fueled it is still very much alive. It is the engine of their evolution. Let that sink in. The same creatures we once thought were simple are capable of the same strategic complexity as our greatest generals. This is the power of verified animal science. It changes the world view. I'll see you in the next video, where we uncover more secrets of the animal kingdom. Until then, remember that the wild is smarter than you think. Keep searching for the truth. Animal intelligence verified. Out. The Gombe War was a tragedy, but it was also a triumph for science. It forced us to be honest about our place in nature. We are part of a long, violent, and brilliant lineage of primates. The Kaseka males didn't just win a war. They won a place in the history books. Their names, Fegan, Frodo, and the others, they changed everything for us. And they did it without a single word. Their actions spoke loud enough to be heard across the world. This is the silence of the forest, broken only by the sounds of a strategic and brutal conflict. We've covered the tactics, the evidence, and the modern application. Now it's up to you to decide what this means for our future. Are we destined to repeat these patterns, or can we learn from them? The choice is ours, but the instincts are shared. That is the final lesson of the Gombe War. It is a lesson written in the soil of Tanzania and the DNA of every human being alive. I've linked the Jane Goodall Institute's resources below so you can support the ongoing research at Gombe. The work continues, and every day we learn something new about our closest relatives and their amazing minds. This is WildLeadTube, signing off on the Gombe conflict. We'll be back soon with more animal intelligence verified. Keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. The wild is full of strategic brilliance. The 4-year war was a dark chapter, but it illuminated the path to understanding our own minds. Without Gombe, we would still be living in a fantasy of peaceful nature. The truth is better. Even when the truth is brutal, it is the only foundation for real knowledge. The Gombe chimps gave us that truth through their actions. We owe it to them to keep studying and learning. 3 takeaways, 3 principles, 3 actions. Use them to navigate your own world and the primitive instincts that still reside within us all. This is the wisdom of the Gombe Stream National Park. The Kasakela group is still going strong, showing off their ancient strategy. They're the true masters of their forest home. You're in charge of your own understanding. Use what we talked about today to see the world differently. Are you listening to the animals? We're here to break down the science for you every week, every video, every discovery. WildLeadTube makes it easy to understand. The Gombe War is done, but the research keeps going. Subscribe now to catch all the cool breakthroughs in animal behavior. The stealth raids and border patrols kicked off the Gombe War, marking a wild new chapter in primatology. You witnessed it all.